Hi guys, it's James again, back with another video, and I struggled to come up with a title for this one because there were several lists that I was working on, and none of them, I couldn't complete any of them. Didn't have enough for each list, wasn't sure I felt strong enough with each list. So I ended up with a number of films, narrowing it down to 10 films that I just really wanted to talk about but couldn't fit them into their own list, which, is the working title for this one. That may in fact be the title. I haven't come up with one exactly yet, but when you watch this video, I will have. Whether it's a nice, short, concise title or the long one that I said at the beginning. Essentially, it's just, I didn't want to do just another part 3 of top 10 films you've likely never heard of, although that's likely true. It's just, these were 10 that I really wanted to put on a list and talk about them, but I couldn't get a single list for each of them. So, we will start with number 10. Number 10 is a movie from 2003 called The United States of Leland. And it's written and directed by Matthew Ryan Hodge, and it stars Ryan Gosling, Don Cheadle, Chris Klein, Jenna Malone, Lena Olin, Kevin Spacey, Michelle Williams, Martin Donovan, Sherilyn Fenn, Matt Malloy, Kerry Washington, Michael Pena, and like several others, but there is a lot of well-known actors in this cast. And I think, because I remember it coming out, I knew it was coming out, but it didn't get a wide release. And I think I was either trying to watch all the movies that either had Kevin Spacey in them or Ryan Gosling, I think. So I watched this one, and it was really interesting because it involves, okay, let me back up a sec. There may be some movies on this list that I'm going to spoil, so you'll see the spoiler alert thing pop up. This won't be one of them, I'll warn you in advance. So with this one, it involves Ryan Gosling's character named Leland P. Fitzgerald, so sort of the title character. And the story kicks off with that he has killed this boy named Ryan Pollard, and they're classifying him as intellectually disabled. So he killed an intellectually disabled boy, and it's a shocking, horrific crime. And he is sent to juvenile hall. And while the family is trying to cope in the aftermath of their son being killed, there's a therapist or teacher at juvenile hall, played by Don Cheadle, who is trying to understand Leland, what kind of person he is, and why he did the thing he did. And they're also talking to friends and relatives, most notably Leland's father, played by Kevin Spacey, who has sort of an estranged relationship with his son. And the movie's all about getting an explanation, getting some reasons for why he would kill this boy. And it's got a great performance by Ryan Gosling in this one, and the supporting cast, but it's mainly about him. So that is The United States of Leland. Number 9, we have another one of those films that I've only been able to find on VHS. It is from 1998, and it's called Savior. And this one is spelled Savior. And it stars Dennis Quaid, Stellan Skarsgård, and Nastasia Kinski. And it starts off with Dennis Quaid, who plays Joshua Rose. He's an official for the U.S. Department of State, and based in an embassy in Paris. And he witnesses his wife and son killed in a bombing by suspected Islamic terrorists. And he flips out, goes into a nearby mosque, and just guns a bunch of people down. and one of them tries to kill him, so his friend, played by Stellan Skarsgård, kills that guy. So they are both in a whole lot of trouble, and they flee the country, join the Foreign Legion. And years later, he's changed his name to Guy, or Guy, and they're fighting for the Bosnian Serbs in the Bosnian War. And while Dennis Quaid is in a sniper position, I think he's observing a bridge or something, Stellan Skarsgård isn't paying attention, and a little girl runs up and throws a grenade into his hut and blows him up. So Dennis Quaid ends up shooting a kid on a bridge and then taking off. And through a sequence of events, he ends up finding this lady, this pregnant woman, and protecting her. And they're traveling together, and she's pregnant because she was raped by a soldier. And she ends up giving birth, but doesn't want the baby because it was a product of rape. But he convinces her to keep it, and they travel together. But they're also on the run from these murderous band of soldiers. And it's all about the relationship between Dennis Quaid and this woman traveling together, trying to stay alive. And it's got a great, I'd say musical score playing through the movie, and some vocalizations that pop up here and there. And just the kind of person that Joshua Rose starts at becomes, and it changes throughout the film till the end. So that is called Savior. Number 8, we have a film from 2011 called Puncture. And this is based on a true story, and it stars Chris Evans and Vanessa Shaw, Brett Cullen, Jesse Martin, Michael Biehn is in there, but it's basically based on the life of Michael David, quote, Mike Weiss. And he was a lawyer, but also a drug addict. And Vanessa Shaw plays Vicky Rogers. She's a local ER nurse who ends up getting pricked accidentally by a needle that was used on an HIV positive patient, and she contracts AIDS, and decides, like, before she gets sick, to try and convince there's this new kind of safety needle where after you give an injection, the needle sucks back inside so that no one else gets pricked by it accidentally or otherwise. And she ends up dying, and Mike takes on the case, trying to convince all these hospitals to switch over to these new kinds of safety needles, but no one will even go near it because of they're making too much money with the deals they have with all the regular needles. So it's his struggle to honor her memory and the cause that she was fighting for. At the same time, he's also a struggling addict, so he's a good lawyer, but he's got a really big, Achilles heel to deal with. So that's Puncture. Number 7, we have a film from 2017 called All Summer's End. And this one stars Ty Sheridan and Caitlin Dever, Austin Abrams, and Annabeth Gish. And it involves Conrad, played by Ty Sheridan, who's out on a dare, driving around with his friends, stealing lawn gnomes and stuff. And Grace, played by Caitlin Dever, her brother Eric is home and from college, I think, and he's out and about, and he catches them stealing one of the gnomes. So they take off in their car, and he takes off in his. And while he's chasing them, they swerve to avoid a deer, but Eric hits the deer, and excuse me, and he crashes into a tree and dies. Now Conrad knows that this is Grace's brother, and he goes to talk to her about it, but he can't bring himself to confess his part in her brother's death. And they end up becoming friends and close and in a relationship, all with this like really dark cloud hanging over them. So you can probably see where the movie is headed. So at some point he's got to tell her, and the closer they get, the harder it's going to be for him to tell her, and will she hate him for it? So that's where I'll leave that one. That is All Summer's End. Number 6, we have a film from 2007. It's a Gus Van Sant film called Paranoid Park. Now this one really doesn't have any recognizable actors beyond, I guess, Taylor Momsen, who's played the one younger sister in Gossip Girl, who's basically only done a little bit of acting outside of that, but basically mostly spends her time performing in her band, The Pretty Reckless. Great band, by the way. Anyway, it starred, let me guess, what's his name? Gabe Nevins plays Alex, and he's a little teen skater boy, and he's at this one skate park they call Paranoid Park, and he ends up hopping a train with another guy called Scratch, I think, and they end up getting spotted by a security guard, and they start to run away, and the security guard's chasing them, and they end up hitting him with their skateboard, and he falls onto the tracks and gets run over by a train. And the movie is actually told out of order. But it's all about the police investigating the security guard's death and who may have been involved, and they're investigating Alex and stuff, and he's trying not to talk, and he's dealing with his life and his girlfriend, played by Taylor Momsen. And for a movie with they do usually seem to work out well. Some of these movies that have like cast with like non-actors, basically, sort of like when another Gus Van Sant one that he did called Elephant had a lot of non-actors in it who did a great job. Well, they also do a great job in this one. So that's Paranoid Park. Number 5, we have a film 2002 called My Little Eye. And this one stars, I think it's Jennifer Skye, Chris Lemke, Laura Regan, and in, I believe, only the second movie his second appearance in a movie, Bradley Cooper. Like, he had done Alias, and he was in Wet Hot American Summer, but he was a little more featured in this movie, My Little Eye, as only his second movie. And it basically it's sort of like a reality show, Survivor type thing, where these five individuals compete for $1 million living in isolation in this house out in the woods. And if any one of them leaves, they all lose. And one day this guy shows up. I think they have to spend 6 months in there. And one day this guy shows up, played by Bradley Cooper, saying he got lost in the woods and can he come in? So they let him in. And he ends up having sex with, I think, Jennifer Skye's character. And unbeknownst to them, he ends up looking into one of the cameras and saying, I told you I could have sex. I told you I could sleep with her. And then he leaves, and they find his bloody backpack shredded to bits later on, so they assume he was killed in an animal attack. And then a bunch of strange, horrific things start happening with them. They can't leave. They probably should leave, but they don't, because they're all still competing for this money, but their lives are at stake now. and it gets kind of hairy, this one. Yeah, but it was a really good indie film, and I had forgot, and I was surprised because you see Bradley Cooper doing just as good a job he does now as he did way back then. It's like 18 years ago. My Little Eye. Okay, number 4, we have a film from 2010 called Hesher. And this one stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Rainn Wilson, Natalie Portman. And it's sort of like a single father, played by Rainn Wilson, dealing with his son after their mom died in a car crash. And the kid, played by Devin Brochu, he plays the character TJ, and they're trying to cope, and just one day they find someone squatting in their house, and it's this guy calls himself Hesher, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Fantastic performance by Joseph Gordon-Levitt in this. He's just like big metalhead, long hair, tattoos all over the place, always wearing like no shirt and jean shorts and stuff like that. And he sort of becomes like a surrogate big brother to TJ, and like teaching him things in the most unconventional ways you can imagine, but becomes sort of like friend, sort of like a big brother, and just kind of inadvertently helping him cope with his mother's death. So it was just one that I think I was looking at Joseph Gordon-Levitt was having like a string of great movies coming out, and this one came out but was very, very limited release. So I wanted to check it out when it was available. So I did, and it's great. Hesher. Okay, number 3, we have a film from 2005 called Fierce People. And this one stars Donald Sutherland, Diane Lane, Anton Yelchin, Kristen Stewart, and Chris Evans. And this is probably the movie I would single out as the most different than anything else I've seen him do, performance by Chris Evans. Like, okay, I don't know how much I'm going to spoil this, but I'm going to say spoiler alert. Okay, just Anton Yelchin and his mom, played by Diane Lane, are having trouble in the city, and they want to get away. So they go to live in the guest house of this former client of hers, this big rich billionaire guy played by Donald Sutherland, and his family. And Anton Yelchin ends up falling in love with the granddaughter, played by Kristen Stewart, and becomes friends with her brother, played by Chris Evans. But they're not rich people, and they're living with the insanely rich, and so there's a big class difference between the two families. And the performance that Chris Evans puts on in this movie, like, he is not a good guy. Pretends to be a good guy, but oh man. And the stuff that happens in this movie, like, because they're never going to fit in with the rich and elite, and the movie, it really goes downhill, not in quality, but just goes to a dark place, and it even ends at the point where Chris Evans' character does something unimaginable to Anton Yelchin's character, and yeah, it I can't remember exactly how the movie ends. It's another one I haven't seen in a long time, but that scene always sticks in my mind, where Chris Evans' character basically violates Anton Yelchin's character in the worst way. And I'll just leave it at that. So a little bit of a spoiler, but yeah. But fantastic performance, just a very dark character. Fierce People. Number 2, Number 2, we have a film a bit in the fantasy range called Neverwas. And this was from 2005. And this was one that it was shown at the TIFF, the Toronto Film Festival in 2005, but it was never given a full release. It just went straight to DVD, where I discovered it. And this involves, it stars Ian McKellen, Aaron Eckhart, Brittany Murphy, Nick Nolte, William Hurt, Jessica Lange. Great cast. And Aaron Eckhart plays Zach Riley, who's a psychiatrist who leaves his job at a prestigious university to take up a job at a privately run mental institution, where he meets Ian McKellen's character. Well, he meets William Hurt's character, Dr. Reed, who is treating Ian McKellen's character named Gabriel Finch. And like Aaron Eckhart's character has always felt a certain amount of guilt because his father, played by Nick Nolte, spent some time in this very same psychiatric institution. And, okay, spoiler alert. Okay, his father, TL, played by Nick Nolte, spent some time in this psychiatric institution for depression. And then when he got out, he wrote this very famous, very well-received fantasy novel about this little kid. And the kid was based on his own son, played by Aaron Eckhart. And his father ends up killing himself, and Aaron Eckhart's character has always blamed himself for that. And Ian McKellen's character, Gabriel Finch, believes he's a captive king in this institution and wants to get to this magical land called Neverwas. And as it turns out, and a lot of the stuff he is saying is based in reality. It strikes a chord with Aaron Eckhart's character, and like a lot of the stuff sounds very familiar to him. Because as it turns out, a lot of the things that Nick Nolte's character, he became close with Gabriel Finch, Ian McKellen's character, and a lot of the stuff that he told him, he put into the book. He put his son into the book, but he also put a lot of Gabriel Finch into the book. So Aaron Eckhart wants to help Ian McKellen get to Neverwas, and because some of the stuff he mentions are based on real things, as I said, but also real places. So it's a very charming movie with a fantastic performance by Ian McKellen. So that Neverwas. Number 1. This one I wanted to talk about the most. This is the movie from 1997 called Reach the Rock. And it was one of the last movies that was solely written by John Hughes. Yes, that John Hughes. And it stars Alessandro Nivola, William Sadler, and Brooke Langton. Norman Reedus is also in there in a small role. And it's pretty much like Alessandro Nivola was sort of like a big deal, kind of a rebel in high school, and he was always hooking up with Brooke Langton's character, and she's the rich girl. So it's like the guy from the wrong side of the tracks and the rich girl who aren't supposed to be together, and they would like come together several, like keep meeting up throughout high school and college and stuff like that. But now it's getting kind of old because he still doesn't have a steady job, and he's come back to town, and she's from a rich family, and she's a lawyer now, and she can't really be seen associating with him. And it's just like high school's over. That we're grown up now. But he never really did, and he's causing trouble around town, and it keeps flashing back to when he was in high school, and his best friend, played by Norman Reedus, they would always try and swim out to this rock in the middle of the nearby lake. And just one night they're getting drunk, and Norman Reedus' character bets him that he can do it. And Alessandro Nivola is like, no, we're too drunk, we can't do it. And he decides to dive in anyway, and halfway there he drowns. And he's always felt guilty for that, but the whole town has always blamed him for his friend's death. Because his friend's dad is the local police officer played by William Sadler. And he ends up, Alessandro Nivola's character comes back and he rigs up this thing to smash the window. He vandalizes several businesses around town, all owned by his former girlfriend's rich father. And he just basically sets up smashes the window of this paint store, sets up a chair, sets a fan in there, and he's just sitting there in the street with the fan blowing on him, waiting for the cops to show up. And the cops arrest him. But throughout the night, he keeps getting out of his cell somehow and going around town and coming back, and he's back in his cell. Every time the cops come back, he's there. And it's this very cat and mouse thing he's playing with William Sadler. And it's a very strained relationship they have, but they also sort of come clean about several things and get to know each other in a very adversarial way. But William Sadler has a beautiful monologue 3/4 of the way through the film where he explains, like, sort of mirroring Alessandro Nivola and Brooke Langston's relationship, that this biker came into town and sort of started dating this rich girl, but they knew that it was never, the parents weren't going to let this happen, so it was sort of like the rich girl was always teasing him, like letting him get close and then ripping his heart out. And yeah, it's a fantastic scene. And this is another one that I've never been able to find anywhere. I think it may be on DVD somewhere, but I still have the VHS, and that's the only thing I'd ever found it on. And it's just amazing. And I wish it got more recognition, but it's just another one that's kind of fallen through the cracks. But as you would expect, flawless dialogue by John Hughes. So that was Reach the Rock. So again, I'm going to try and come up with a good, catchy title. If not, it's a bunch of movies I really wanted to talk about and couldn't fit them into another list. So, anyway, so I'll see you guys next time. Like and subscribe, and toodles.